All right, howdy.
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 How's everybody doing? So, let's see. Y'all don't need to see that. So, past homework was super hard to grade. Like at the beginning, you know, I could keep track of everything I took off points for, like very specifically, and take off exactly that amount. But as the homeworks get more complex, I can't really do that. So when I go through and like, if you got a bunch of lecture notes in there, and I gotta search for your sub or whatever, I gotta run a bunch of them. I mean, y'all can trick me. Like if it's super easy, I can go through and I can just click, run through it. I'm probably not gonna spend a whole lot of time looking for problems. So y'all can trick me on that. So I was deciding which class I want to take next semester. So first thing I do, of course, is, you know, do I want to take the class? But second, the most important thing is what kind of grade am I going to get? So I pulled a bunch of data from the grade distribution, which if y'all don't use the grade distribution to decide which class to take, you definitely should. So these are some of the classes I had interest in and the grades corresponding. So like 35 people got an A, and follow 15 with Ntamo, I don't know how to say that, and 405. And so I wanted to know, like it displays the average, but I wanted to manipulate the data. So say you wanted to find, I know you don't really need the standard deviation, like that doesn't really help you. But say on a test that he asked for the standard deviation. So how would you find the standard deviation of a frequency? So you need to have data points, assuming you don't know the formula for like weighted standard deviation, which nobody does. So I'm just going to run through this one real quick, and then we'll do the practice exam. So let's see. So it asks us to fill in these three: total, average, and standard deviation. So a bunch of different ways you can do it. First thing I would do, here, do y'all want me to send you this right now? Yeah? Okay. And I've already been asked to go slower than I did last time, so if I go too fast, just tell me. Actually, sorry, I can't. See, when I send y'all emails, it has to go through Validates for approval. So I can't send this to you now, but I don't think I have permission to do that, but we'll see. I don't know, let's see. Where did I download this to? Yeah, it won't let me. I don't know, y'all want to copy this right here into your thing? So don't worry about what the text is, just throw some numbers in there.
Should we start at D5?
Yeah, keep it on the same cells. Do what? Yeah. We good? So total, obviously, easiest way to do that would be just a sum, right? So say we know how to do that. How would we do average? Who can take a guess? So like you could do, so it's a weighted average, you know, so it's, the average GPA is going to be 4 times this one plus 3 times this, the B's, 2 times C's, whatever, divided by the total. But with the standard deviation, we're going to have every single data point. So we need to put that into an array, and then we can take the worksheet function and use that to calculate our standard deviation. So in this test, you're almost always going to use loop, so I would just go ahead and dim your eye. And let's say we'll dim our array. And so we're going to make this function as in like you only run it for this one, like this section. So we'll go ahead, and so we need to put 35 4s into the array. So we'll say, we use an anchor cell, let's say D, I don't know, what is that, 4? So we need to loop through this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, that many times. So we need to loop through 1 down 35 times. We need to loop through 2 down 23 times, and so on. So we're going to need 2 iterators. So we know starting here, we're going to need to go through the A's, the B's, the C's, the D's, and the F's. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can just put a 5 there. And once we offset that, which is going to be, so that is going to be our 35, 23, 1, 0, whatever. So we need to put in 35 4s, so we're going to need to loop through that many times. So say j equals 1 to that many. So that's going to offset from D4, 1. It's going to, we need to put that many in there. So we'll go, this is going to be our dynamic, so we'll say redim ARR. So how do we put in a new one? I think the easiest way to do that is to just have a counter that keeps the count. So we'll say M is what I usually use. So M starts out at 0. Every time we add something, every time we redim it, we add 1 to M. So, but we also want to keep track of everything. We don't want to throw it away every time we come through here, so we'll preserve that. And we'll say the mth one equals dot offset I0. So that's going to come through here, put in 35. We don't want 35 in there. We want 4, 3, 2, 1, or 0. So we need if statements. So we'll say we need to refer to this A. So this A needs to correspond to 4, B3, 2, C, and so on. So we can offset from our anchor cell, which is right here. I'll color that so you can see that. So if we dot offset a column over and a row down, that equals A, then our M equals 4, right? Otherwise, we do that for each combination, or sorry, each possibility. Are we following? Am I going too fast?
So,
Yeah?
What's happening?
Okay, what? You can kind of ignore the, I don't know, the structure of the problem. I just came up with this, so I'm just trying to get y'all to see the syntax and the code that's happening. So don't worry about like what we're trying to accomplish. Just try to follow the code. So does this make sense what this code will do right now? No? No? Okay, so we're using this as our anchor cell. We need to put, when you have an array, a really long array that's going to have, so like 35 people got an A in this class and follow 15. So to take a standard deviation, we need to have 4 in there 30 times, and then 3 in there 23 times, 2 in there once, and so on. So that we can use a worksheet function maybe it's stdeb_s or something like that. So that we can take our standard deviation that way, because we don't, I mean, who remembers the formula for standard deviation? So if this is an A, we want to add 4 into the array 35 times. And B, we want to add 3 23 times. So we're going to cycle through each one of these, and then within that we're going to go in this many times because we need to add that many values to our array. And so whatever letter is over here corresponds to the number, and that's the number we add. So we'll do our each combination. So if it's a C, we want to add 2. D, we want to add 1. F, 0. And then it's always good to account for different possibilities. So say for whatever reason we hit 1 and we don't get one of these values, we want to know that, so we'll just stop it if it's not A, B, C, D, or F. So clearly, if that happens, something's wrong. So once we've got our array, we can close these loops. And now we want to fill in these 3 cells. So from our D4, our anchor cell, we go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Total is just the total number of people in the class. So that would be the count, how many times or how many values are in our array. So that would be, we went through and we added 4 35 times, we added 3 23 times, and so on. So that would be our count. We can just stick our array in there. You can use some worksheet functions with arrays and some you can't. But we can use these.
Is that the same as just sum?
No, that's going to go through and count how many entries there are. Yeah. So then for average, that's going to be 1 down from that one, so that's a 7. Say average of our array. And then same thing for standard deviation, that's 1 more down. And we'll take standard deviation of a sample array. I believe that should work. So if we run it, we'll go ahead and select that one that we're on. So I can see. Oops. So we're looking at this one. So if the one to the left of it equals A, which it does, we're going to add 4 into our array and then do it again. So we add 1. We add 4 again. That's going to continue on for 35 times. So if we run through all that J loop. We go to the next I. That's going to be the B's. So again, we're going to add 3 all that time. And that's going to repeat. So we run through all of them. We take our count, 61, average, and our standard deviation. So if that, I know I was like really bad explanation, but I'll send y'all this thing in the recap that Valdez will approve on probably tomorrow morning. And so, yeah.
That's select. What does that select do?
It just selects the on the worksheet. So like,
So you need it.
no, you don't ever need it. You should always delete your selects when you're done with your code, because it makes it take forever. Like, I don't know if y'all did last homework, if you left in all your selects and you hit run and it just like went crazy. So yeah, if you take those out, it'll run a lot faster. Or you can do up here, this little trick you can do screen updating. That means that it won't update anything on the worksheet. So then you set it's true at the end, whatever. So just to show y'all, we have this select in here, but if we run it, oh, just kidding. So if we run it, it doesn't select anything. Alright, so practice exam. So this test is pretty hard, like pretty good. And this practice exam is really not that hard. So that's my, it's what? It's what, okay, anyway. I thought this practice exam was really pretty easy compared to the past test. So take that for what it is. I don't know. Have y'all seen this practice exam yet? Mm-hmm. No? Okay. All right, so look at first problem. So this weighted moving average. We've done moving averages, right? Yeah. Wait, y'all don't have this, do you?
We do.
Oh, you do? Okay, never mind. All right. So first thing, we come through here, we read all this. Good to go, good to go. Clear all the cells in column F. All right, we know how to do that. Columns F, clear. Next one. The weights for the moving average are in column A. The number of weights in column A determines the number of months in the moving average. In the example below, the column number of months in the weighted moving average is 3 because there are 3 weights in column A. Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry. Okay. So the weights for the moving average are in column A. Number of weights in the column A determines the number of months in the moving average. In the example below, the number of months in the weighted moving average is 3 because there are 3 weights in column A, yada, yada, yada. All right, so that means he's been talking about number of weights, number of weights, number of weights. So let's get a variable for the number of weights. Say n weights as integer. And by the way, like on a test, it's good practice to dim all your variables at the top. But on a test, it makes it a little bit easier if you dim it right before you use them. So we'll do that, and we'll say, so we need to find out the number of weights. So a lot of different ways you can do that. I think the easiest way to do it is to do the dot row on a range. So we'll do A1, we'll go all the way down, take the row of that, and we'll subtract 1. So in this instance, it would go down here, select that. What's the row on that? That's 4. Minus 1 is 3, so there's 3 weights. You can also do, you know, the double-sided range. You do it like this. So next problem, replace formulas, Excel SUMPRODUCT formulas. So we're going to use the SUMPRODUCT using relative addressing in column F to calculate the predicted sales. For the first month where the weighted moving average can be calculated, the predicted sales in column F is equal to the product of cells in column A and the cells in column D. So that's really complicated. So if I was reading this, I would get a little frustrated right here and I'd be like, all right, I'm coming down here. So I'd look at this, and it's pretty easy to see that you're multiplying 0.2 times 28, sum, so 0.3 times 16, 0.5 times 23. Add those all up, and that's what this is right here. So, do our C, and so how do we get where to put this formula that we're going to make? When I did it the first time, I did a loop, and I put like the formula in here, and then here, and then here, and then here. Valdez, on his solution that he'll send y'all, just does it with a range, as in like he selects this entire range and puts the formula there. So I'm going to do it my way. Say we'll dim our I as our integer. And so how many times are we going to write this in here? Well, that's dependent on the number of weights and the number of days. So we got the number of weights, so we need to know the number of days. So we'll make another variable for that. So I'm going to do that the same way I did the other one. So I know a couple of y'all, or actually a lot of y'all probably had this problem on, which homework was it? The gadget one, where y'all had like, you had to like offset a certain amount, and you had to find out it was like 2 times whatever, plus whatever. So the easiest way to do that is just to think about different situations that you could have. So in this one we got 8 days, 3 weights. 8 minus 3 is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that sounds pretty intuitive. So we'll try that. So we're going to put that in 5 times. So for I equals 1 to n days minus n weights. So we know it's going to be in column F. So range F1, offset, how many are we going to go down? First time we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. So that would be what? I plus n weights. Formula R1C1 equals, so we know it's SUMPRODUCT, so let's write that in there. And we need to refer to absolute, the weights, and then relative, the sales. So automatically we know we're going to include the weights. So we can just type that in straight up. So that's R2, R2C1 to R what? That would be, what's the row for the last weight? This R2C1 is this first weight right here, and we need the last weight. So we know that's going to be on the 4th row. So this number after this R, it's going to be our number of weights plus 1. So that, in this case, it'll be R2C1 to R4C1. So we've got that range. Sorry. So then our second element in that sum product. Do y'all know what the sum product formula looks like? Like the inputs on it and everything? So say you didn't. You can come over to your summary sheet. Let's see. Is it on here? Not on there. Have y'all used the sum product in formula or in homeworks? I don't think so. You did? Okay. Wow. It takes 2 ranges and multiplies them together, adds them up. So our second range in there is going to be this one, this one, this one. So offsetting from this cell, we know it's going to be 2 columns over. First part of the range is going to be 3 rows up, and the second one is just going to be 1 row up. So that's going to look like, we're going to go, for the first one, we're going to go up 1 row, left 2 columns, and the second part of it is going to be up. How many are we going to go up? We're going to go up n weights rows and left 2 columns. So if we come over here and we put that in, R. So let's do our first one first, since that's going to be constant. So we'll go up 1 row, over 2 columns. And then our second one, which is our top one, which is going to change, it's going to go up n weights rows. So that's going to be minus n weights. 1, 2, 3. Yep. Sorry. Close that bracket, and we know we're going left 2 columns. Do that, close the parentheses, and that's it. So let me everybody tracking on that? Good. So this is one of those problems that, like, you can't really go through it and do each letter individually. Like, you gotta understand the whole thing before you continue. So that is the whole thing. Let's go ahead and run it and make sure it works. So what is our number of weights? That's 3, that's right. Number of day is 8, that's right. So we're gonna go 5 times. First one, 21.9, we run it. Is that what it shows here? Yes. Any questions on that one? All right, so number 2. This is our password. So when you look at this problem and you see DuLoup, what's up? Oh. When you see DuLoup, sorry, one at a time, what? The formula? Tell me what I'm going too fast on. What's not making sense? Everything. Say it again.
Like in those cells where the numbers are supposed to print, it says like some product R2 C1, some product.
You're probably missing a equal sign right here. All right, next problem. I had a friend that in the final of this class was in a DuLoup and got in an infinite loop and the computer shut down 10 minutes before it was over, and he hadn't saved. So he ended up failing the class and had to retake it. I was like, dude, you should have like begged and pleaded, like, but I don't know, he just took it. So when we see DuLoup, first thing we're gonna do is we need a way to make sure that that doesn't happen. So the way I do it is I come in here, and what we do is we have a counter variable, and so each time we go through the loop, we add 1 to it, and we say if it equals some really big number, then stop. So if we, for whatever reason, if we mess up the code and it goes through 10,000 times, then the code will stop and we don't lose our code, or we don't lose our grade. So we'll say our counter is 0 here. Each time we go through the loop, we'll add 1. So we got that out of the way. So have an input box, keep track of the password attempts, keeping invalid passwords entered in a dynamic array that should be dimensioned only as large as needed. The code will check if the entered password is valid by performing the following steps. So input box, get a password, so we'll do that. We'll say password, call it a string. Password is input box. It says, we'll keep track of the attempts by keeping invalid passwords in an array, and we'll determine if it's valid by performing the following steps. So we need to do this before we mess with the array. So we're going to determine if it's at least 8 characters. So we know that's our len function. So it's bigger than 8. If it contains at least 2 lowercase letters and at least 2 numbers. So we need 2 variables to keep track of the number of lowercase letters and the number of numbers. So we'll say dim n, I don't know, low and num. So we need to loop through each character of the password and determine if it's a lowercase or if it's a number. So we'll go ahead and do our iterator up here. So for I is 1 to the length. We know to extract some part of a string, we use our mid function. So if mid password, we'll start at I, 1 long. Say if that. So when I originally did this, I put this here and I went through and said if the thing equals the lowercase version of the thing using our L case. Oops. So that's what I originally did, but I found out if you come down here and you say, let's say 1 equals L case 1. So that's actually true. So if we store our, an integer 1 and you try to take the lowercase version of it, it's the same thing. So we can't use this right here. So the way to do that is ASCII codes. So come down here, and what's the ASCII of lowercase a? Oops, lowercase a. 97. And what's lowercase z? 122. So instead of this, we can just say if the ASCII of that is greater than or equal to 97 and less than, and less than or equal to 122, then we know it's lowercase. both of those are true, then we'll add 1 to our nlow. So now we need to do our numbers. So we'll just say if is numeric, we know that. Same thing. So if it's numeric, we add 1 to our nnum. Oops. So if we go through that whole loop, and we need to check if it's got at least 2 lowercase and at least 2 numbers. So we say if nlow is greater than or equal to 2, and nnum is greater than or equal to 2, then, oh, that's all the conditions. So when a valid password is entered, password will be added to the list of existing passwords on the first column of the worksheet. So we have if it's greater than or equal to 8, and then we come through here and we find out how many lowercase and how many numbers are in there. So if it's greater than or equal to 8 and it's got at least 2 lowercase and at least 2 numbers, then that means it's valid. So we'll add that to the list of existing passwords on the first column. So if we come in here, this is the existing passwords. So we can do our .end again. So range A1 .end. Go down 1 more from that because .end will take us right there. That is our password. So if we don't have at least 2 lowercase and at least 2 numbers, then that's an invalid password. So what do we do with that? So when a valid password is entered, the code will write to cell C1, C2, whatever. The passwords entered that were stored in the dynamic array before the valid password was specified. So we need to have our dynamic array. So we'll say array as string, and it's dynamic. So my way of doing that is to have another variable to keep track of it. So we'll call that m. So if we get to this point, that means that there is at least a, but there's not at least 2 low and at least 2 numbers, so that's still invalid. So we'll add 1 to our m. We'll redim, and we want to keep track of the number of invalid entries, so we'll preserve our array, make it m long, and we'll say that one equals password.
And what's the difference if you don't use preserve? Like, what does that word do for?
I'll show you. So say she asked what happens if you don't use preserve. So say we have our array. Let's say we have, I don't know, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So if we we run this, oh yeah. We get that, so if we redim it, let's say we want to add one to it, so we'll say 6, and we'll say array 6 equals 6, whatever. So we print out all those, we redim it, but don't preserve it, and we want to print out the 6th one. So we get our 6, but what is our first one? It's empty. So it basically, do y'all remember pointers from C++? Yeah. So it basically, I mean, it throws the memory that was allocated for array originally, it throws it away and says, all right, I'm going to pick a new spot in memory, and I'm going to assign enough so that they can put however much they want in an array. So preserve tacks more memory onto wherever that address that you originally put in for it. So I know that was a really long explanation, but yeah.
So to be safe, should we always use preserve whenever we're redoing it?
Not necessarily. In the last homework, the traveling salesman, when you went through and you had to, for each starting city, you had to go through and it had the Boolean visited variable. So that one, every time you started a new city, you want to erase everything in Boolean visited. So in that instance, you can just redim it. So if it's dynamic, then preserve. So now we need to count for if it's less than 8 characters. So if that happens, we're going to do the same thing again as we did here. We can just copy that. So we'll come back in and put our letters to make it easy. This right here is E. And so when a valid password is entered, the code will write to cell C1, C2, whatever, the invalid passwords that were stored in our array. So we're going to loop that until we get a good one. So the easiest way to do that is to make a Boolean variable and just say, if we get to this point, then we found one. So I'd make a new variable. I'd call that be valid. So if we get to this point, longer than 8, more than 2 of both of those, we'll say be valid is true. And so we'll loop that until be valid is true. And so we need to initialize be valid. So we'll set that equal to false every time we run through it. Oh yeah, our DuLoup. So after we add one to count, we'll just say like if count equals, I don't know, 10,000, then stop. So let's run it and see what happens. So we enter password. Let's enter one of these same ones that was in there earlier, max2 pass3. So that one's got 2 lowercase, 2 numbers, it's 8 letters long, so that's a good one. Oh, it decided to run for it. All right. Step through that again. Enter max2 pass3. So greater than or equal to 8, that's correct. Does it have at least 2 lowercase ones. We'll see, come through here. Two lowercase and 2 numbers. That's true. So we're here, and now we want to write that into this cell right here. So write that as true, and end. And so now, once that happens, we need to write all of the invalid entries that were entered before we got a valid one into here. So we can come in here, and so we know, here, let's enter a bad one just so we can see what it looks like. So let's say, oops, sorry. So let's enter 1. So we know that's not going to be 8. So we're just going to come down here. It's going to add that 1. It didn't add 1. Oh yeah, there we go. So it added our invalid entry into our array. Come through again, enter another one. We'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Adds that again. Now we'll come in here, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a bunch of them. That's at least 8 long. Yeah.
Do you know why it would say loop without do, or do without loop, but I have a do and a loop still?
You're probably missing like an end if or next I or something like that. So we try that one. That's not a valid one. So it adds that to the array. And now let's enter a valid one. We'll enter our max 2 pass. Actually, let's do a different one. Let's do my 1 pass for you. So we know this is a good one. So we're just going to skip all that. We know it's good. It's going to write that into the last one. That's correct. Mark it as true. And end. So right here is where we need to do the writing of the invalid ones. So I think, yeah, so it just wants it in here. So we'll say, how many times are we going to write something in there? Well, it's going to be the length of however many are in an array. So we'll say for I is 1 to U bound. You could use M in there since we know we're keeping track of that, but I'm going to use U bound so y'all can see it. For 1 is U bound, we're going to say range C1. We're going to offset. First time we don't want to go anywhere, so we'll I minus 1 equals our array I. So are y'all aware of option base? Yeah. So like VBA defaults to array starting at 0. So if you don't like that, you can come up here and say option base 1. And so now our array is going to start at 1 instead of 0. Run that, we'll say enter a bad one, hit it, enter a bad one, hit it, and now we'll say a good one, hard to guess, 99. So that comes through, we know that's a good one, we write it in there, and then we loop and we put the bad ones in here, end it, and we're done. So what kind of questions do we have on that one? How'd y'all think of the password one on the homework? It was what? It was good, yeah. Do we have any questions on this one? I know we got something, come on. No? So are y'all agreeing that this practice test is easy, or no? Yeah.
Why
This one?
No, like the, you have it, like keep going down.
Sorry.
The next L.
The next L.
The
Oh,
one right
else.
beneath
Oh,
it.
this one right here.
Yeah, what is that?
So that is, first thing we check if it's greater than or equal to 8. So if it's not, then that's invalid. We want to add it. And then we check if it's got the 2 that we need. And if not, then that's also invalid. Somebody pick something that they don't understand and tell me so I can explain it. Yeah.
Could you change the location of that for loop you just wrote for the one to e-bound array? Is there a certain reason you put it in that?
That was just because we went through we know it's longer than 8 and it's got the 2 we need, so I did it here. There's a lot of different ways you could order this. You could say, you could just put the be valid in here, whatever, and then do all your writing and stuff at the end based on whether it's true or not. I just put it here because it's less to write, so. It also wants us to, columns should be cleared every time the program is run, so. Yeah. Where it's displaying the bad ones, it puts them in. Did you have it like this? Do what? That is because, so we're coming in here, that is on your, so if it says out of range, it's most likely a dot end. So where did we use dot end? We used it right here. So do you have anything in column A? Do you have anything in column A? So that's why. So if you don't have anything in there and you hit dot end, it goes way down forever. So that's your out of range. So you can come in here and you can say, you can put like an if there's something in A2, then dot end, otherwise don't. I didn't include that because he probably wouldn't take off much for that. So to clarify, if there's something in A2, then we want to offset. Otherwise, there's not anything in A2, so that's where our password goes. So we write it in there.
That was a wrong one because it's all capital M. Now you can type in like capital M AX2, capital P AS3.
So in there, it says like think the incorrect passwords in like a dynamic array. With the if statement we had, in the else statement, like we added them, but like and equals and plus one, isn't that what we're doing with that?
What do you mean?
Like when we did read-in, preserve, AR, and is that what we were doing?
Yeah, that's adding one. So it's sticking another empty slot onto the end of array.
Okay.
So you can also do the array as in like, instead of doing this little bit,
I just want to see if it was continuously continue to valid house group.
Was it to lowercase and to uppercase?
You do the whole like whatever it's to the ASI, ACI.
I remember it doing that one time.
sorry, one second, I'm going to show you a different way.
Okay.
Where's the button? So instead of doing that, we can just call it 1 at the very beginning. We'll just say there's 1 in array. And then every time we want to add one to it, we'll just say read-in preserve the upper bound of array, add 1 to it. The reason that you have to have this 1 here at the beginning is because if you try to access the upper bound of an array that you haven't declared how big it is, obviously that doesn't work, so.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Thank you.
It's quiet, so I'm guessing that means we're good. All right, next one. Yeah.
And like a new test, like I could figure it out. I just don't think I could figure it out.
All right, so next one is a function. So do we remember functions? Yeah? I'm guessing we're not done yet. Okay.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Like, because I wasn't able to read it, I sort of won't even remember. I have the example of what we do together without knowing, like, oh, I do something.
So are we good? Next problem? All right, so this one's a function. So it's called string adder. So we'll go ahead and just write that in. Function string adder. So it says it will receive a string variable and a range variable. So we'll just say string as string and range as range. And we return a string variable. Then we type as string right here. So it should use a for each loop to determine if the string variable passed is equal to one of the cell values in the range. So if we look at the worksheet, it's saying if we pass this range and Mary, where is that cell among that range? So for each loop, that means for each object. So we're going to look at each cell, so we need a range variable. So this is where we do R as range. And we say for each R in our range. I'm going to rename this so it's a little more clear which one we're using. So for each range among the range we passed, is that equal to the string we passed? So we'll say if R equals string pass, if the string value passed matches the value of one of the cells in the range, then the function should return the Excel relative address where the matching cell is located. So if we remember, the relative address is found using right here. Right here where this first one element in here is, do you want the absolute on the row and the absolute on the column? So if we find that, it wants us to set return the relative address. We'll say string adder equals r dot address. Oops. Address. Row absolute. Nope. Column absolute. Nope. And then if we get there, we're done. So we'll say exit function. And if, and we'll go to the next range in there. So if we go through each one and we don't find the one we're looking for, we want string adder to be something else. So what do we want? We say if it doesn't match any of them, it should excel the relative address corresponding to the top left of the range. So you can come in here and you can determine, here, we'll do it two different ways. We'll say be found as Boolean. So if we find it, mark it as true. And then if we go through all of them and be found is still false, then our string adder equals the top left cell of the range we pass. So that'd just be range dot cells, or sorry, range pass dot cells, first one. And then again, we want the relative address, so dot address, false, false, just like that. So we come through here, we check each cell. If it equals the one we're looking for, which in this case is Mary, then it returns the address of that cell. So that's C3. If it doesn't find it, it returns the top one, which would be Magdalene. So you could do that with this be found, or you could just set it originally to the top left cell. So you originally set it to the top left, and we only change it if we find the one we're looking for. So I think that's the best way to do it. Less code is better code. So functions are there's almost definitely going to be a function question, and it should be pretty easy points. Look, obviously this is like, he's not going to ask a ton of code in the function. It's just going to be, can you write a function? So I would run through these a couple times, but don't spend too much time on whatever the function is asking. Just make sure you can write all of this right here in your function. So we'll try that just to make sure it works. So we know we can use these in the Excel sheet. So is string adder, we'll pass, that's our first one, string. We'll say we're looking for Peter. We'll pass this range. C4, that's where Peter is. So then let's say, I'm going to move this. So then let's say we were looking for, I don't know, ZZ, whatever. So we type that, we say, looking for that in this range. So that should return the top left cell, which should be B2. So that's what it does. Yeah.
Can you explain the third line?
This one?
The one on top of that?
Yeah, so what I was talking about here is you can have your Boolean variable and just set it to true if you find the one you're looking for, and then at this point if it still equals false, then we set it to the other one. Or you can just set it originally to the wrong one, the top left cell, and then update it if we find the one we're looking for.
So what does that line mean though? Like,
Oh, he selected
That is range pass, the range we pass. The dot cells 1 1 is take the the cell in the first row in the first column of that range, which is this one right here, and you want the address of it. This right here is the it's part of the function, so we say dot address. I don't know why it's not returning. Well, the first one is, in our summary sheet, it says returns in this format, arguments are true, false. This first argument is if you want the row reference in absolute, and then the column reference in absolute. So if we didn't have that in there, let's see what this is. So we'll say we're on this one. Say selection.address. So that returns the absolute, money sign C, money sign 4. But he wants relative, so we don't want that. So we say selection.address, false, false. So that takes away the money signs. I'm pretty sure I think I took this test when I took this class, and I'm pretty sure I forgot this false, false thing, and I put a string function and just got rid of the money signs with it, and I mean, I probably got like 80% of whatever that part was asking. So you can be creative if you forget something. I don't know, he appreciates being creative code. Do we have any questions on the function? Yeah. You can't click F8 whatever and run a function. It's accessed from other subs.
So,
What did you actually write inside the worksheet? You call them like that?
and like this.
You just write like string adder, and so our first one is the string we're looking for. So let's write Simon, and then the second element is the range. So you put in this range right here, close it, and we get that. I don't know why this changed, it's weird, but anyway. Yeah. So it's, no, I can't zoom in on that, but it's that.
That's the range pass, right? Because the other thing is, he has range over here for this one. There, it's appreciated.
So do y'all remember last time when I showed you the bin packing thing I had, where you put the little boxes in the big boxes? So I did that in a function. So that's what all of this is right here, all of that. And so how you use functions is in your code up here. Like when I went through and I wanted to do that a bunch of times, you just set whatever your cell is equal to your function, and then input all that. So that's what functions are used for. Yeah. So what we did is we just originally, right off the bat, we set it equal to the top left cell, which is this cell's 1-1. So this should be. So right off the bat, we set it equal to the top left cell, and then we only update it if we find the one we're looking for. So you can do like a Boolean down here where you say, if we get to this point and we still haven't found it, then set it equal to the top left cell.
No, I mean like in this thing you're supposed to say like if it's not if what you type in isn't in the range, then you're supposed to say like it's not found.
Oh, okay, yeah. It just wants a message box. I went through the solution. I'm pretty sure what he wants is, yeah. So I forgot about that. So you do need this this Boolean. So we return. If we get there and we haven't done that, he wants a message box. I don't really know why he wants a message box, but we'll say message box. What do we want? We want our string pass, or no, sorry.
Wait, but he says he wants it in the cell. Let's read the example. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
No, I mean, like that's where it says to say it.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. So then we just say this. So commenting that back out, like we originally had, we just put and what dash text not found. So there you go.
I don't know if you just waited for all of them.
So we'll say string outer z over our range. So b2 text not found. Cool. Next one. All right. So event handlers are definitely going to pop up. That should be pretty easy points. So when an Excel file opens, use an input box to ask for the name of the person stored in a string variable. So if we do something right when the Excel file opens and we want to store something in a variable, we're not using it right then, we want to use it later. So that we know is a public variable. So we'll say public user as string. So we remember how to do the event handlers. We click on the object that we're talking about. We're talking about when the workbook opens. So we click that, and we click this part here, and then we want it to happen when it opens. So that's what it popped up with. So this is where we write the code for that. So we say user equals input box. Yeah, okay. So we got this. Cool with that? So we want something to happen when the workbook opens. So remember, if I took off points for y'all's homework originally when y'all didn't write in a module, this is why. So we click on this workbook right here, And this is where our events happen. When you click any of these and you write code in there, it's on an event. So first thing we do is we click this left one just to get, so you don't ever write like private sub workbook underscore open. Don't ever write that. You can just come in here, and once you get this one, this right one corresponds to this one. So we say workbook open, and this, whatever we write here, will execute right when the workbook opens.
Okay, can you do that again one more time, please?
Yeah. So we got our public variable. Want something to happen when the workbook opens. So this is the workbook. We click that, and we click this one here. It's always going to be the same one. There's only ever going to be one option here. You gotta select it. And then in this one, you click when it happens. So like you could pick, I don't know, when we activate a different workbook. So like we browse down here and we select a different workbook. We could have something happen when we do that. That would be window deactivate. So in this case, we want open. So we find open. Some of these are like kind of not intuitive. Deactivate is like selecting. So like deactivating a workbook would be minimizing. So like deactivated. So like if we wanted to do something when somebody clicks on this problem 2 worksheet, we would come into here. We would find problem 2. Problem 2. We would click this right here. This is always going to pop up something right when you click this one, but we're not writing any code in that, so we just delete that. We say, oops, sorry. So we want something to happen when they click on problem 2 worksheet, so we come in here and we'd say problem 2 activate, and then we write our code there. So are we good on that?
Yeah.
All right. So when the workbook opens, we say input box. I think it's just what is your name. Ask for their first name and store it in a string variable. All right, so we got that.
So whenever we're doing stuff like this, is this the event handler part?
Yeah.
Okay.
Event handler is on an event, so on an event that the Excel file opens, and so on. So we got that. When it opens, use a for each loop to list the worksheets in the workbook in a message box. So remember in the function when we did for each R, this is an object here. So we have an object that's arranged. You can also have an object that's a worksheet. So if we dim a variable, call it ws as worksheet, then we can say for each ws in worksheets, and that'll loop through each worksheet. There's a lot of different things you can do with this. Like when we get into forms, you can do like different buttons on the form. So if you get something like this and you're not sure, like for each, whatever you think about doing, you can probably do it. So just go with it. So in that, we want to show a message box with that. So we'll do we'll make a variable for the message box. We'll just say message as string. So he wants us to list the names of the worksheets. So first is a little preface here, a little worksheets, whatever. So we'll just write that on there. Equals worksheets. So then each time we go through there, we want to add the name of the worksheet. So we'll just say every time we get to a new worksheet, we stick the name of that worksheet on the end of message. So we'll say equals ws.name. And we go through that many times. I'm going to put a little space here so we can see. So what that's going to do is it's going to cycle through each worksheet and find the name of it, stick it on the end of message, and then once we've gone through all of them, we want to display a message box. So we'll just say message box message. So that's all of that. So I'm going to loop through that so y'all can see what's happening. So every time we get to a new one, we'll say activate. Let's say, what's your name? So we're on problem 3 right now. So for each worksheet, the first worksheet, activate it. Then we add the worksheet name onto the end of message. So we'll say, I'm just going to show what it equals down here. First time we go through, that's what it equals. It stuck problem 1 onto the end of it. So we go to the next worksheet. Oh, sorry, that shouldn't be there. That was from the last time. Okay, now we gotta start over. Alright, so back to where we were. First one, second one, we activate it. We stick the name of it onto the end of it. Print out that again, just like that. Next one, same thing. And then show a message box. If you didn't know how to use a for each loop here, you might know that you can do worksheets and then you can use an iterator like one, whatever. So you could come through here. I'll write this down here so you could say dim I as integer. Say to worksheets.count. And then you could just append the worksheets I.name onto the end of it. You probably would get a little bit less credit for this, but it'll work just as good. So and then when the file is about to be closed, show a message box that reads, user, you spent however so minutes working on this workbook. So we definitely know that we need to show how many minutes they were on there. So right when that happens, we have the ending time and we need to have the beginning time. So that means when it opens, we need to store that time in a variable, which we're going to have to make a public variable. So we come back to the beginning, we'll say T0 is double. So when it opens, we'll just say T0 is timer. That's the number of seconds since midnight. Oh, what is happening? Oh, there we go. So right when it opens, we got the time. And then when it closes, we want to do something. So we come back up here, change our event to, I think it's called before close. Yeah, before close. So if you didn't know that, you could just come through here and look at them, see what it looks right. The only thing that says close is this one. So I'm going to do that one. We'll say message box user, you spent, we need to have the number of minutes, so we could say timer, because we know timer later in time is going to be bigger than our original one. So timer minus T0, that is in seconds. So we'll divide that by 60. That's number of minutes. Minutes working on this workbook. So event handlers and functions are probably going to be worth, like this is worth half of the test, and they're really not that much, there's not like that much to know about them. You just got to be able to know how to write function, write your types in here. Do we remember by value and by reference? Yeah. So I think VBA defaults to by reference. So let's see. So say we're going to run through string adder and we're going to put in whatever. So if you want to debug a function, you have to call it from somewhere else because you can't hit F5 in there. So I'm just going to put some dummy nonsense in there and we put a stop in here. So it'll stop right there. So let's say actually that's kind of a lot longer than I thought. Anyway, it defaults to by reference. So by reference is the pointer again. So let's see if I can write on this thing. Hey. Okay, so you have all your memory in the computer, and so we call this. We'll call that my variable. So you dim it, and it sets that amount of memory away for your my variable. So if you pass it by reference and say you update my variable in the function, then when you get out of it, my variable is going to be changed. But if you pass it by value, then it just sends the value that's stored in my variable into where you want it, and it doesn't change the value of my variable. So I know that drawing didn't really help at all, but I did that as a public variable. So I'll send y'all this when Valdez approves it. These are pretty much everything that I could think of that I could fit on a page. Let's see, for each object, we talked about that, or you could use I if you know how to do it. Use a failsafe on your do loops. You know, you need a Excel formula if it says update if cells change. We got that listed. We talked about redim and redim preserve in our dynamic variables. Option base. I wanted to clarify on that. So you have option base 1, so that means we declare our array and it's going to start at 1. So like we say array 1 equals whatever value. If we don't do that, it's going to start at 0. So you can change that. You have to put option base 1 if you want 1. Talked about by value and by reference. Event handlers. Sorry, that shouldn't be event handlers. That should be. Anyway, yeah. So we got our public variables up here. If we said private, private means it's module level. So we can use my variable anywhere in here, but not in the event handlers. And yeah, if y'all don't use the immediate window, you should. And if you remember, F2 is your object browser. You can use that to find, like, say you forgot what goes before a range. So you come in here, you say, oh, that's a really generic one. Let's say cells. What comes before cells? That's a member of the worksheet. So yeah.
How do you get, this is not really about that, but how do you get like those extra like buttons over there where you can comment on things?
I did view, toolbars, edit. I actually didn't know that till like a week ago. So yeah, don't go through the book and read it to study for the test. That's like a terrible use of your time. You should read the book before class, and so you know what's coming, and you can look at it and get a feel for what's happening. But you know, like you took C++, and that was multiple choice. Like, you know, you study the book. That's how you're tested. Well, this class you're tested on how you can code. So don't do that. Sit through, run through this again, run through the homeworks, run through the. Don't look at the traveling salesman again. Look at. Yeah, no, that was hard. It was like, I don't know, when I first did it, I took like probably 3 hours. Then I was like, of course, you just run through the starting cities. Anyway, don't look at that one again. You got a password in here, so you can probably not look at the other password unless you want to get a different feel for it. I would say the gadgets one is probably another good one to look at. I would go through that again. And like I said last time, if you can run through the practice exam in 50 minutes and get 100 on it, you're golden. I don't know, that's how I studied for it. I kept running through it until I could get it 50 minutes, and then I felt good about it. So, did we have any questions about anything that I went too fast on? There might be a curve. I don't know. Yeah. There was when I took it. Yeah, there was on exam 2.
There was on the second exam.
Second exam.
Is there one usually in the whole class?
Can't tell you. He hasn't told me, but I can see grades, so I don't know. So yeah, I think that's all I have for y'all. Unless you have any questions, you want to come by or whatever.
Can you like print out an array? So like once you like put all the like elements that you want in the array, can you like look at it? Like
You can come down here like I did right here. You have to do it in a loop. You can't just say debug.print array.
okay.
So you got to do each element. So you can do like
I tried to email Professor Flores for like I didn't email back for the homeworks. And I know he posted the homework 5 and I haven't studied that, but like I still wanted to study
which one?
4 and 6.
4 and 6. Which one was 4? Is that the gadgets?
Yeah, I think 4 is gadgets.
Maybe I
It's
can
like
send you
I don't know if mine is completely right. I'd rather go by the correct
I don't know. I would go by his office tomorrow because I can't send you the solution, but I can. I don't know. Ask your friends, I guess. That's all I got.
Because like yeah, I asked a couple friends and like they sent me theirs, but like I don't think theirs was like they knew theirs wasn't like 100% correct.
Yeah. Just go by, and then if you have any questions on it, come by on Tuesday.
Thanks.